Andre! Andre, open the door! Andre!
You gotta get out of here! Listen, by the time we get through that door, he'll be on the outside waiting for us.
So what are we gonna do?
If he's still on Chester's side, I should be able to make it to the roof. I'll just wait up there for him to come out. He's either got to go through the front door or out the roof. Danielle, keep working on that door.
He might try and come in through the cabin.
No, I don't think so. It's too locked.
He might be on the roof already, waiting for us to come out.
Yeah, I'll go out the kitchen window and up the pipe.
He might be in our apartment.
Yeah, he might.
I think we should stay here. We're gonna get through the door soon. Chester's probably at the police station already.
I'm going up.
You can't.
Listen, Danielle, when you get through that door and it looks clear, run out at short intervals in different directions. In the meantime, watch for him out there. He might try and shoot through the door. I love you. Stay calm.
You are listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. The following podcast contains adult language, adult situations, and spoilers for the movies discussed occur often. You've been warned. Now, take it away, Dr. Rausch.
They must be destroyed on sight.
And welcome back. It is They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, episode 241. And I'm your host, Lee, corrupting decent people, Russell. And I'm joined by my special guest this week, Vaughn, don't call me turkey, asshole, Kuhlmeier. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? Those middle names are always getting me every time.
The thing I hate is when IMDb doesn't have a quote I can just easily capture. Then I have to pay attention to the movie more closely.
Well, yeah, with this film, definitely.
Yeah, there's like hardly any dialogues half the time.
Yeah, that's the thing that works really well about this thing. Yeah.
So we are doing not a lost film, really. It's just kind of like an overlooked sort of Canadian exploitation film from '83 called Siege. Just got a Severin release. That's why people kind of know about it this year. But we're going to be looking at that in a few minutes. But first, we can go into what we've watched lately. I don't really have anything to mention. I have watched a ton of shit, but I've extraneously talked about this stuff on other podcasts the last couple months. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I'll just throw over to you, Vaughn.
Okay, so I got a couple things. The Outing from 1987. It's also called The Lamp.
Oh, that's still one with the genie, right?
Yes, it's one with the djinn. So it's a film where, you know, a bunch of hoodlums come into a old gypsy's house. They find her treasure, which is this big ornate lamp. They kill her, and then they ultimately get killed somehow by something in the darkness. The lamp ends up in a museum, and the researchers are kind of trying to figure out what it is, like where it came from, all this stuff. The bratty, like not I can't say like she's not like a tween girl. She's like late high school, so maybe 16, 17 years old. Daughter comes in and is like, you know, kind of playing around with her father. She notices this bracelet, puts it on, and it automatically links her to the lamp. Like it's the counteract. So her and her friends one night decide to break in and they do like a trip to the museum, and the kids decide to kind of like hide out and sneak and stay underneath so they can kind of like get a little hanky panky and shit like that. But all shit breaks loose the night they decide to stay in the museum for the night. There's some really funny moments in that film. There's for some odd reason there's a opera singing night guard who's just roaming around, and he gets probably one of the more fun kills where he gets a harpoon through the chest into a glass case. And there's a scene where one of the girls is bathing in a bath, and she gets attacked by a bunch of snakes. While her boyfriend, we see the aftermath of him where he gets torn pretty much his ass to elbow, like so his feet are over his shoulders. When we see him, we don't see the whole. They kind of pick and choose the kind of special effects they want to do. It's kind of a film. It's one of those low budget kind of ends. But the djinn, when they actually show the genie, it's this big fucking hulking monster roaming the aisles and stuff like that. It's a really cool film. It's been released a bunch of times. Like Shout Factory or Scream Factory released it first time as The Outing, and then they found another print as The Lamp, and then Vinegar Syndrome just put it out on Blu-ray as like the most comprehensive cut of the film. So they must have found a better, like a better version that they restored and put it out. And then the disc is filled with a whole bunch of special features with the directors and all. It was actually a really good time. It's a film that I really like.
I remember. Sorry to interrupt. I remember watching this. The last time I watched it was in the 90s. Yeah. And this was like around the time me and my friends were like renting this and Night of the Demons and shit like that on VHS. And like good like double feature of Night of the Demons. When
I was a kid, when I saw it originally with that poster where you think it's just going to be a bunch of kids stuck in the woods somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, this looks really cool. And then I watched it and I was like, all right, it works. The box art actually works compared to what you're seeing in the film. And I've seen all the cuts because like every time it came out on Blu-ray or DVD, I bought it. Oh, yeah. And now that Vinegar Syndrome is like, this is the most comprehensive release of it, I was like, okay, I need to have it. And it's a good time. It's like, it's a little under 90 minutes. Yeah. So it blows by and the violence is just right there. Right. And just, it works the whole thing. And even like, because it's the whole kind of like genie thing, the girl who has the bracelet, she's doomed regardless. Not everybody's going to survive this. It's a fun little film for like that time period.
I remember I kind of remember the sort of first kill being the most impressive one though. Like the old lady they break in, she gets like an axe to the head or whatever. Yeah, and then the three of them, either one gets drowned and the other one gets attacked, but you never see anything, which is cool. Like I kind of like that like whole thing where it's like we do POV shots of the monster killing everybody because they probably didn't have the thing made. And the fact that the djinn, the genie monster is this big puppet. It wasn't any CG because it was late 80s, so they didn't have CG. But it was this humongous puppet that like three people controlled, and like it was It just they did a good job of shooting it where you can't see the bottom of it, so it's just like this hulking big monster. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking awesome. And when it attacks people and it's like trying to grab at people, I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. It's just a real fun time, I remember it looking like when I first watched it, I thought it looked like they took a He-Man figure of some sort. Yeah. Like,
took all the fucking armor off it and just painted it black. Another thing I saw was I watched Pele. It's on Netflix. There's a documentary about the soccer goat Pele. It's pretty much, it talks about his birth up until the 1970 was a World Cup, like his last World Cup, and kind of the trials and tribulations of him being, the greatest of all time, and kind of how things kind of floundered, and he tried to work his way up, and then when the 1970s World Cup came, it was kind of him showing everything, and it just kind of stops right there, and then it kind of gives you the blurbs at the end about him going to the cosmos and retiring and then becoming commissioner and whatever like that. But it's an interesting piece because it gets him very like whoever, like the surviving people that he either played with or coaches or kind of like, the turmoil in his country at the time, which is a big thing in the film, which is really cool. But like his kind of like honesty about how he feels now compared to like then, and how he felt conflicted about leaving the World Cup stage at one point because he felt like he got, he won 2 back-to-back and then they came back and he got floundered horribly. This is like he's a guy, he's in his early 20s, teens, and he had just won 2 back-to-back World Cups with his country's team. The country was so expected of him, and there's like, you have dictators fucking running the country, and it's just, it was such it's an interesting little doc because it's very honest. It doesn't pull any punches, and and he's not a guy who doesn't like, he won't, like, it's not like I won't talk about this stuff, but it's nice to have him sit there and talk about his upbringing and like how he felt about the world he was living in at the time. So it was a really unique little thing, and that's on Netflix right now. Okay. Because I thought it was something. There was a movie version of the same story time from like 3 or 4 years ago. That's like Pele, the birth of a hero or something like that. I can't remember. And I thought that was it. But then when it starts, I'm like, oh, this is just a straightforward documentary. I was like, okay, fine. So that wasn't bad. And then I watched Watch Out, We're Mad from 74, Bud Spencer, Terrence Hill.
Yeah.
Because like last year, for some reason, like all like these streaming services like Prime and like you can find all these films. They were all out there. And nowadays they've kind of rejected it. There is this like huge German box set that came out like maybe last year, the year before, which is great, but it's all region B, but it's all those films, like the 14 films that they made together throughout the like 15 years that they worked.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly on this, like the one last film that's still on Prime. Like, so if you pay for Prime, you get it as your part of your subscription. And I hadn't watched it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I haven't seen this one. And I bought a bunch of them because it was like, oh, HD versions of Banana Joe and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, fuck it, just buy it. Like, it's $5. Put it down. I'll have a dry version in the cloud just so, like, to keep it just in case they completely all disappeared off Prime. But I watched this one and they're race car drivers and Bud Spencer's obsessed with this red Puma dune buggy, and you have the Oliver Onion song Dune Buggy, which is great.
Yep.
And the film starts with him sitting there, staring at the window like a little kid, watching the car slowly spin on the aisle, and then all of a sudden you see him in the truck in the Dune Buggy, just sitting in there, and he has this big smile on his face because he's like, I know I can win this fucker. And then they cut to the race, which is just bonkers to the point where they both crash their cars into each other, and they have to run to the checkered line. And they both win it, which, kind of annoys the hell out of Spencer. But, Terrence Hill's always got a smile on his face, regardless of what he's going. They start doing, like, their little competitions. So, like, they're like, why don't we do arm wrestling for the car? No. Why don't we do hot dogs and beer? Whoever can eat the most hot dogs and beer will do it. So they go to this random place that's connected to a circus. Just a circus, like, right next door to the place. As they're doing their little competition, these hoodlums come in, knock the place out, and not just knock the place, like, do a little bit of damage. They fucking wreck the place with axes and just cut the whole fucking place to shit. As they're trying to leave, and the funny thing about this car is, it's a nice little dune buggy. It's a really cool little Volkswagen dune buggy. One person hits the car, all of a sudden it's on fire, and they're both sitting on the street, like, just like, and Spencer's pissed off. And you still have Hill going. He's a little upset, but he's still got that silly smile on his face. He's like, oh, okay. So what are we going to do? And then it's their kind of like revenge for the dune buggy. They just go on an onslaught, fighting everybody. This Italian kingpin has. Donald Pleasance pops up as like the kingpin's doctor, which is just goofy as shit. And the one thing I really liked about it was that it's actually in Italy. Like, it's not like where they're trying to make it look like America, or they're on some kind of like Caribbean island, like some of them are, or it's actually in Florida, like the 80s ones were. Yeah. It's actually like in Italy. They actually use that stuff. It's just that it's their dub. And the one thing about it is that the dub actors, the guys who are doing the lines, it's not the ones I'm used to.
Oh yeah.
Because like Terrence Hill used his own voice, and Spencer had somebody, but it was always that kind of gruff voice. And this one, it's definitely not Terrence Hill doing his own voice. And then there's and then the Spencer one is a little different. And I'm like, okay, it took me a little bit to get used to, but he doesn't have a lot of words. He's mostly just kind of either smiling or glaring at people the whole time, which I think is funny. And you have some really great fight scenes. You have the one fight scene in like the gym. So they're just beating up people. They're just beating the shit out of people. There's one where they take a car into a wedding and fucking wreck the place.
And the fucking balloons everywhere.
Yeah, and the balloon, and they jump into the balloons, and all you hear is just fighting and balloons popping. It's like, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. I'm like, the best fucking thing ever. And it just, it makes me think, like, why can't we get, like, Kino to, like, buy the rights to all these fucking films and release them? I don't need a box set. Just fucking release them over the years. Just 2 here, 3 here. Just make them all available. And like Terrence Hill is still alive. We would just love to have like just interviews with him about talking about those films, because he isn't doing any. Like, he's not really making any films. He made that film My Name Is Thomas a couple of years, and that was kind of the swan song. Yeah, which wasn't very good.
Like, he's in his 80s now. Or something, right?
Yeah, but he was still trying to do the whole kind of like, he still looks great for a man in his 80s.
Oh yeah,
it's just the story wasn't that great for that film. And it's like, the big, for my friend Bud at the end of the film. It's like, because he directed it and stuff like that. I think he even wrote part of it. I was like, oh yeah, okay. I was like, I'm not doing anything today. My girlfriend wasn't home, so I was like, all right, I'm doing this. We're gonna sit down and watch this. So I made my kid watch this with me, and he was, he's just like, back at his tablet. I'm like, fine, whatever. Fuck, who cares? Whatever. You're too young. Whatever. I'll watch this myself. I'm just cackling like an idiot the whole time. So it was a good time. And then because I watched the movie we're talking about tonight, and I was like, I need something to levy.
A little lighter. Yeah.
So this was because Siege, because it's out through Severin, you can rent it or buy the digital copy, and it was like $1 difference, so I just bought the digital copy. So I was like, all right, I need something to watch that's completely opposite and like in the same wheel and like a comedy. And I was like, oh, so I just dumped in Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill, and I was like, all right, I haven't seen this one, let's watch it. And just completely I was like, oh, this is so much. This makes the day so much better.
Yeah,
because Siege just gets you, because that Siege just really fucking mires. And I was like, we'll get into it, but I was like, not in a good place when I finished watching that movie, and I really needed something to kind of just get me back in a good mood. Yeah.
I think a lot of people generally kind of cite that as their best one that they did together.
Yeah, a lot of people do. When I put it on Letterboxd, you just seeing other reviews, and they're like, yeah, it's just one of the best ones, and I'm like, yeah, sure, but I think everything they did together as a team, even the ones when they were actually doing them in Florida, like in the early 80s and stuff like that. I think they were working with Canon, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I think
because there's like Aladdin was a Canon film, that weird Bud Spencer film where he's a genie. Fucking silly as shit, but it's like acid. It's like the story makes no fucking sense, but it's just gag after gag after gag.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, I'm like, okay, like as they got like that, those early films, those early 70s films, the Trinity films are really good for them. But like when it's like modern day stuff, yeah, this is probably one of the better films because they're just slapstick fucking fights the whole way through.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and they're two guys who like each other but don't particularly care for each other, which I always love that animosity in there with their characters. So yeah, that's all I have to watch. I've only been watching.
All right, cool. We are going to take a quick break and listen to a podcast promo and some music, and we're going to come back and talk about Siege.
You ungodly warlock.
Motion Picture Massacre is dedicated to exploitation, cult, grindhouse, and horror films from the last 7,500 fucking years. I don't fucking know. It's everything. If you're interested in that, check out motionpicturemassacre.com, or if you're on iTunes, search Motion Picture Massacre and you'll find it. This has been your announcer, Cowardly Fuck Your Bags, signing off. Eat a dick.
You ungodly warlock.
Siege, 1983, and we have a trailer.
A police strike paralyzes an entire city and unleashes a violent new order. Suddenly, every citizen must arm and protect themselves.
What do we got to defend ourselves with?
The attackers have every kind of weapon. The innocent defenders have only their courage and their cunning to survive the siege. Siege. Today, their city. Tomorrow, yours.
Wow, that makes it sound like a much grander scale movie than it actually is. Like, the whole city's under siege, and they've got laser guns apparently. But but this is Siege 1983, aka Self Defense. It's probably its best well-known alternate title. It's also known as Night Warriors. In Germany, it's known as New York 1991 Nacht und Gesetz, or Night Without Law. So this is directed by Paul Donovan, and he's sort of had a nice little sort of steady career here in Canada. Oh, and Maura O'Connell as well, who was his girlfriend for a while and produced a bunch of the movies with him, but actually has a directing credit on this one. But Donovan did, he started with South Pacific 1942, which even he says was a piece of shit. Basically.
Is it DEFCON 8, right? DEFCON 8 was one of the films he made? Oh, DEFCON 4, sorry.
Yeah,
oh, Christ.
From 85, and that's probably his most well-known other film. It's probably best known, and I think everybody's seen the poster for this one with the astronaut suit, the skeleton in the desert.
Yeah, it's awesome as fuck. And then he was a producer on Lex, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, producer and director on Lex. So that's his other big claim to fame, and I quite like Lex. I thought it was cool.
I thought it was a cool little show. Yeah, definitely something different. Yeah.
So this is starring Tom Nardini as Horatio, and he was he had a sort of a small little career going. He was in some notable things. American actor. He was in Cat Ballou and The Devil's Eight, are two ones that sort of stand out for me, and did a lot of TV. Brenda Bazinet as Barbara. She did mostly Canadian TV. She sort of popped up in just about every sort of Canadian-made TV show. Yeah,
she didn't look familiar at all. I mean, she looked like somebody who should be in film, but I was like, and I looked at her IMDb and I was like, oh, I've never seen anything else that she's been in.
Yeah, she basically just did one shots in stuff like Friday the 13th, the series.
Okay.
The Hitchhiker, which was that anthology series, which is pretty cool. It has a great theme song anyway.
Right.
Street Legal, Avonlea, North of 60, Forever Night, the
Forever Night. Yeah.
And even Goosebumps. She was in a couple of those. So we have Daryl Hanney as Chester. I think his biggest credit, honestly, is he wrote Friday the 13th, Part 7.
Oh.
The New Blood.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he was mostly a TV writer, but he does have a credit for that. Terry David Desprez as Daniel. Now we have two people directly from Meatballs.
Yeah.
We got Jack Blum as Patrick, and he was Spaz in Meatballs, and he was also in Happy Birthday to Me. We have Keith Knight as Steve. He was Fink in Meatballs, and he was
Hollis in My Bloody Valentine. That's how when I saw him, I was like, Hollis. And then I was like, and then I look back and he's in he's in Meatballs, and he's like a whole bunch of other fucking things. Like, why? And he's and I was like, why do I remember him from that? Because he doesn't even look familiar without the big fucking mustache. And I was like, but it's still like, okay. And the fact that he's the blind guy out of the group, it's like, it's like shit.
Yeah, class of 1984 as well, and Unknown Origin. Isn't that the rats living in
the Cosmatos film? Yeah, it's the Peter Weller monster rat film where his wife and kid go away for the weekend, and he fights the rat all fucking weekend and just tries to and gets and destroys the fucking house. Yeah, that movie's fucking awesome. Yeah.
Then we got a guy who looks like he's ready for the fucking grave already. Doug Lennox as Cabe. He is dead now. Rest in peace. But here he looks like he could have been like
brutal.
The other choice for the tall man.
But he was in the first two Police Academy movies playing somewhat the same character, a little more of a jokey character, but somewhat the same character.
Yeah, he was like it was Police Academy and Police Academy 3 back in training.
Oh,
he did
3, okay.
And he basically played a variation of the same character, although different characters in Police Academy. Like he was an axe murderer in one and something in another. He was also in X-Men. He was the bartender that Wolverine gets a beer from in the opening there.
And he's in Lars and the Real Girl. Remember that film? Yeah. I'm looking it up, and I'm like, he looks familiar. And I'm like, from what? And there's like Police Academy movies. So okay, yeah, I remember that. Then I was like, Lars and the Real Girl. I had to go back and kind of find pictures. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I remember him in that movie, yeah.
We have Jeff Postel as Goose. He was in DEFCON 4, Killer Party, Iron Eagle on The Attack, and he's
the fuck,
not a good movie, but and he was also in Saw 5 of all things.
Okay, I remember him from Killer Party definitely because that's that movie's just stuck in my brain too, like my beloved thing.
Yeah. A lot of times you see like, oh, why is he in Saw 5? Because they shot in Canada and they needed Canadian actors. Fred Wadden is Ian, Gary Dempster as Lloyd, Dennis O'Connor as Clark, and here we have a especially relevant one, I guess, these days, Richard Collins as Rosie. And this is kind of like one of his only real film roles outside of the Trailer Park Boys franchise. He was Philadelphia Collins in that.
Yeah. Like, well, yeah, it's amazing that he went from that to like those films and the film versions, not even like the TV show. He's in the movies, which is like, okay, sure, fine, cool. And it's like, that's awesome. Yeah, he popped up in like a couple episodes, but there's like, all right, we'll make him prevalent in that. Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah,
I really I don't know if I guess because you're Canadian, it's a fucking, if you don't like Trailer Park Boys, you're pretty much kicked out of the goddamn state.
Yeah, so, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it is shot in my home province and everything, so.
Yeah.
And I mean, technically, DEFCON 4 is it takes place in my home province because their spaceship crashes on the East Coast in Nova Scotia. So,
well, this film too. This film is loosely based on a thing that happened 4 years prior, right? In 81 or 3 years prior in 81. Yes. Which because I was reading about this, that opening piece with the reporter is actual footage from TV at the time in 81. And I was like, holy shit, really? And it's like the only known remaining footage from that incident of the strike. Yeah. And I was like, fuck, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, we got a police strike that happened in 1981, in May of 1981, I believe it was. And the reporter here is Blaine Hinshaw, his only IMDb credit because he was just a journalist, and this is footage of him. Although he is...
isn't he a musician too?
Yeah, he's a musician now. He's sort of a somewhat local celebrity in the Maritime provinces, basically, like kind of about as big as you can get in the Maritime provinces without being known outside of them. So he's just kind of in this. But yeah, we have a synopsis here from someone called Ole Ryle Olson from IMDb. He says a bunch of self-righteous bullies want to set some new rules in town while the police in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada are on strike. They try to scare all the gays and lesbians in a bar, but by accident, the owner of the establishment is killed, and the leader of the bullies then decide to execute all witnesses. One guy, though, escapes and takes refuge in an isolated block of flats. The young tenants in the house refuse to hand over the survivor, and the bullies then decide to get rid of all the residents in the house. This turns out to not be so easy because the young people in the house barricade their apartments, set up traps, and arm themselves in order to fight back, and this inevitably leads to more bloodshed and killings.
Bullies is an understatement. Fucking fascists, like straight up fascists.
They're full
like on. A vigilante, like a fascist vigilante group running around, and it's that opening sequence. They open 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's
just a good 15 minutes.
Fuck, like they just come in and just fucking start shit. And you're like, really? And like, I understand, like, your country, like, I don't know, it's never like, it's like kind of like the UK too, like in the last like 10 years or something like that, have been more kind of lenient about homosexuality and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my country isn't any better, but like since the 70s, people, the gay community has been very kind of forceful about like being taken seriously.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And that starts right there. And and the cool thing about it is that it doesn't do the whole kind of faith thing. It doesn't try to make them be like fucking stereotypes of themselves. It takes it very seriously. And I'm like, all right, because I've been to many gay bars in my life, and it's a place where people can just kind of be themselves and not worry about being bullied or, accosted. And the people who are in there are just kind of hanging out and just doing their own thing. And then these fucking dickheads walk in with fucking bats and clubs and shit. And something bad's going to happen. It's not going to be good at all.
It's very refreshing the way. I'm not going to say this is like the most progressive movie or anything like that.
I mean, for the time though, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. The gay club is just kind of presented as a kind of a little dive bar down in the basement of this building, basically.
Yep.
And yeah, you're right. Nobody is. It's not fucking cruising. It's not like, the stereotypical like leather daddies everywhere and all that kind of stuff. It's just a bunch of people dressed normal, hanging out, having drinks. Like there's nothing really similar about them. I guess there's two lesbians in it who kind of look like Paula Poundstone a little bit because they're in suits or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, the gayest dude in there is the bartender with the neckerchief. That's about it.
And they come in and accost them, and they pretty much refer to they're wearing armbands with NO on it, and it's like they tell us what that is about. It's a new order because we actually don't know how, like, I don't know if I remember they reference how long they've been in strike, but it's definitely been long enough where these groups have these factions have kind of rose up and are slowly trying to push themselves in as the new is a new face of what's going to be covering for the cops.
Yeah, the actual cop strike in 81 lasted, I think, 40 to 50 something days. It was, so like it went well into the summer.
Because in the film though, they do mention that like by the end of the film, we have a blurb. It says 42 days after the incident, the cops came back. So this film starts like right as the strike happens, I guess, in the world of 1981.
It's about a week after the strike starts is where it is, because I think the actual strike lasted about 56 days or something like that.
Jesus.
Officially.
Wow. Holy shit.
After that strike, it actually set in motion for the government to make it illegal for the police and the fire department to strike because they're considered essential services. So now they got to do like, collective bargaining or whatever.
Well, that's what they did. Like I worked for the post office in the States, and in the early 60s, late 50s, there was a huge strike. And after that, they put in the bylaws, we're not allowed to strike.
Yeah.
It's column B, section 6, no striking. And if you want to, even if you want to kind of protest, you can't do it between working hours. You have to do it off the clock. So you can do it, in the morning, and you can do it at night, but you can't deliberately stop the work from going through. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I was kind of pissed about that a couple years ago when I found that. I was like, fuck, what the hell is this shit?
Yeah. So, the cliche, Canada's really nice and polite and shit like that. So I mean, going along with that, where it kind of reflects in real life,
right?
Yes, there was an increase in crime and violence and stuff as the strike was going down, but most of it actually, ironically, centered around the main police station was at the time.
Okay.
Like a lot of this shit sort of just happened in that local area more than anything else, apparently. So it wasn't this movie is like, hey, what if this went really, really bad? Like, what's the worst possible kind of shit that could happen?
Definitely.
So,
So what happens is they're accosting the bar. They beating up one guy who's pretty much just sitting there dancing and by himself. The bartender pulls out a pistol, threatens him to get out, drops the pistol within a little bit of a melee. They kind of fight with him, drag him across the bar, and he lands on a broken wine bottle, impaling him dead. Right,
goes right through him too.
Yeah,
it's
right.
It's like I was looking. I was like, okay, the bottle isn't quite long enough that I believe it could actually go right through him.
There was a good piece of that bottle, because that bottle broke into one big nice piece, and there was a big shard. It should have went. If they really want to be realistic, it probably would have popped through the front of his stomach. But yeah, you have this whole bottom of the bottle sitting in this bloody mess, and these guys are freaking out. And you definitely have two of these guys are a little more kind of into this. And you have the kind of weaselly little dude who's losing his shit about it because he doesn't want to go to jail because he knows exactly what this is. It's second degree. And they're like, well, we'll call in Cabe. And he's like, okay, is that right? Cabe?
Yeah, Cabe. Yeah.
Cabe. So they decide to call Cabe, who is pretty much the ringleader of these guys. And they explain to him what's going on. He comes. They have them pretty much tie them up, duct tape their mouths, and they zip tie their thumbs, which I've never seen before. And they get them down on their knees, and Cabe pretty much pulls out his pistol, puts a silencer on, gets a pillow, and starts shooting each one of these people on the back of the head. Daniel is the only survivor. He's able to get out of his restraints with a small little pocket knife, and is able to avoid them, kind of jumping through windows and getting through different buildings. He comes across this one building, and he's just lucky to kind of come across this, which is just pure luck, because he could have came across anything, and he would have either got pushed back out or saved. And we get a bunch of these, these, what is it, 4 men and 1 woman, 5 men and 1 woman, yeah.
It's 5 men. No, 4 men. So yeah, you got Horatio and Barbara. They're a couple. And you got Chester, who is the guy in the apartment next to them, they never really get into the background, but he must be into some shady shit because he seems like he's a pretty capable militant type of dude. Right?
But it seems like Horatio and Chester kind of have the same mindset. About everything, because they're the ones working together. And then you have Steve, who's a blind man, who seems like they're kind of just.
Both are legally blind.
Patrick is. He has glasses, so he's by the state he's legally blind.
Yeah,
but Steve is a blind man who walks with a cane, and it seems like they're kind of teaming up, the 5 of them, to keep those 2 men more safe during this whole thing, because they seem to be very easy to kind of get accosted by people. But Horatio and Chester have a kind of a mindset that they need to be well and high alert during this whole strike that's going on. So they've kind of rigged their apartments together, because they actually live right next to each other. They have cut out their medicine cabinet wall.
Yeah,
you have kind of a see-through between the 2 of them, so they can hand back and forth stuff and kind of communicate without actually having to leave their apartments. So they come across them. They bring him in. They bring them in. He explains what happened, and that these people are looking for him. The New Order finds them fairly quickly, and they pretty much go, full on siege on the apartment building, from across the way. And it's a one night deal. Like, I read your review on Letterboxd, and you were referencing that it was very kind of influenced by Assault on Precinct 13.
It is, yeah.
But with that kind of mindset in like Romero's zombie universe, where it's more about the people that they work with together, because both factions are kind of, well, the fascist faction, they seem to be kind of people who are kind of being dragged into things that they don't really want to be a part of. Yeah. Like, there's a couple of those guys that are definitely, they're doing it because their friends are doing it, and they have no choice. And then you have Chester and Horatio, who are very kind of militant.
Yeah,
like, I mean, Horatio seems to be the lesser of the 2, but they're definitely, they have their minds set, and they know what they need to do, and they know that they need to protect the people that are in their vicinity. Like, they need to protect Patrick and Steve, and they need to protect Barbara. Even though Barbara seems to be a very strong-willed woman, she does, there are some issues when she does get attacked where you're just like, okay, she pulls off she puts up this wall. But when she's definitely down on the count, she knows how to handle herself, but she definitely is going to get fucked up at some point.
Yeah, she's very high strung.
Yeah,
this is how she's sort of portrayed. But yeah, like, I get the feeling that at least maybe Horatio has some sort of like military background, maybe.
Right.
And then Chester, at the very least, is kind of like a weekend warrior type, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our two blind characters, from from what I like, it's not really super explained in the actual text, but I get the idea that they're kind of like being taken, like it's almost like a social service, like caregiver kind of situation.
Yeah, maybe Barbara was their social service assistant, and then they just kind of brought them into their apartment and are letting them live there while this is going on because she doesn't feel that you can tell that she doesn't feel that they're safe out on the street. Because when Steve goes out, the first kill we get after Daniel explains everything, what happened and why he's hiding, and they decide to, give him sanctuary. Steve decides to go out on his own to kind of just get a breath of fresh air. So he goes down the stairs. And as he's going down the stairs, he gets outside the door. He gets this big smile on his face because he feels the fresh air. And then he gets annihilated by like 6 different guys with fucking high-powered rifles and machine guns. Yeah. With silencers on them. It's just fucking nasty.
All these guns, by the way, authentic guns, like not movie prop guns that they were using.
Really?
Yeah. And the coolest thing is, and the thing that kind of gives it a little bit of pizzazz when it comes to the attackers. They got this one guy who's a sniper on the other side of the street on the roof with a infrared scope of some sort.
Which isn't 100%. Like something happens where he gets fucked. And it works like 20% of the time. But he's a really good shot when it works, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
But you see that they have these really high power weapons, and you're like, like it's a little too clever. And then with Horatio and Chester, they have like a couple of rifles. They have a bow and arrow. They definitely have a couple of kind of made explosives and stuff like that. But nothing like what they have. It seems like
very Home Alone, right? Like they immediately sort of like get the situation.
Yeah.
Well, these guys are outside. They've just gunned our friend down. So they have automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons.
And they just, after they kill Steve, they pretty much just, once they start seeing them in the window, they just start shooting into the windows and trying to kill them like that. Even though they have an idea that Daniel's in there, they're not really sure.
Yeah,
they know that he ran in that building, and they just realize that these people look a little more different than everybody else that's in the apartment building.
Yeah,
and that's where they kind of get it. Like, and then when they see Daniel, that's when it clicks, and they decide to go into the building, and they kill a bunch of they kill like one of the neighbors who opens the door like an asshole.
Yeah. I think honestly, there's only like really one other tenant and he gets his ass
shot to death. Like,
he's the drunk guy who gets killed. The last time you see him, his cat's like drinking his blood on the floor.
Yeah.
So Horatio and Chester immediately know, we gotta arm ourselves with what we got, so they improvise a bazooka at one point. Yeah, and that's what they use to take out the sniper, because the sniper is kind of the biggest threat. Every time they try to pop their heads out anywhere or get a look at anything, the sniper's right on them. So.
And you have Patrick, because he's blind, his hearing is well impaired.
He's Daredevil.
Yeah, pretty much. So he's able to listen through walls and whatnot, and they pretty much use his ability of, his excellent hearing as an advantage for them, which is kind of like the one like fantastical thing.
Yeah.
And then Cabe is kind of like this. He doesn't make any fucking sounds at all. Like there's that one scene where he just goes in through their like they live with a hutch on the roof. And he just slowly starts to steal their weapons from them, and they don't even hear anything, and they're right in the next room.
Yeah,
and he is the most silent motherfucker in the world.
He's straight up a slasher killer. Like the movie becomes a slasher film in the final third when he's the guy that's left, facing them. Right?
Yeah, because they slowly are able to figure out how to kill every one of them, because they get sloppy. They all run in like assholes, and they just like don't expect. They think that they're going to be able to just take these guys out really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun when you get those little scenes, especially the guy with the hat that fucking just won't shut the fuck up, and he's the one who started this whole thing to begin with.
Yeah.
And when he gets his ass killed, it's like,
yeah, finally.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Although I like the guy who plays our Philadelphia Collins here. He's the guy who gets the arrow to the throat and. It's fucking
they pull him through, and they open the thing, and they set that little thing off, and he's like, "What's this?" And he opens it up and just slit right in the neck, and it's like, and they cut back to him multiple times, laying there dead with the arrow through the neck, and it's like, okay, I can see why you guys keep wanting to show that, because that's a really good effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's this kind of,
it escalates, right? Like, because at the start, the violence, like there is a little bit of gore, but it's like, it builds and builds and builds. Like this is
it's super bleak. It's super bleak from the very start, and that's why I was saying, like, I needed some kind of like something to really pick me up, because like I don't mind films like this. I actually really enjoy like after watching this, like I said, I bought this on Prime, and actually after I watched it, I actually went to Severin and bought the Blu-ray, because I'm like, fuck, I need to have this. I don't know who I'm going to show it to, but I need to have this. I want to watch all the special features and all that stuff.
They got the longer cut on the Blu-ray as well.
Oh, even better. Because this was like 89 minutes or something, 88 minutes.
Yeah, there's 15 minutes that are sort of cut out of the widely available version.
Okay.
Although I have seen the 15 minutes are added back in, and I think it actually works better with the 15 minutes cut out, because it's mostly scenes before we get into the movie that we know, that kind of like give background on both of our groups of characters.
Oh, okay.
And I
like the fact that there was kind of like, you get little glimpses of everything, especially you get the big reveal at the end, which I don't know if you want to talk about.
But. Oh yeah, definitely, because this is Assault on Precinct 13, but the flip on it is that the cops are bad guys.
Yeah. Because you have so they survived the night ultimately. Daniel was able to survive the night. Horatio and Chester and Barbara survived the night. And everyone else.
No, Chester dies.
Oh no, you're right. But everyone else dies. Most of 90% of our bad guys are killed, except for the sniper, who has been injured. And we see how he gets injured at one point, but he kind of gives up after a while, because it's just his equipment isn't working.
I'd fucking give up too. Jesus Christ.
Because he keeps trying to get it to work, and it works for a little bit, because they definitely were able to get him at one point and kind of knock his shit out, which was good.
Well, he got the bazooka blast, right? He got the improvised.
That's why he had the scars on his face, because of that, because of the improvised face. So we get a crawl, we get a cut, and it's a woman playing with her child in the park. They're playing catch or roll the ball, and it says it's 42 days after this incident, the cops came back to work. And as the child is rolling the ball, she rolls the ball down the hill, and a cop picks it up, and it's our sniper, who still has the visible scars on his face from the attack. And you're like, oh fuck, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
and to be honest, it's a huge thing here in the States. Just in the last year and a half, fucking George Floyd shit.
Yeah.
And like the whole Blue Lives Matter, all that dog shit.
Yeah.
Then you realize more and more that like a good 70% of the cops in the States are kind of fascist assholes who just really live by the gun. And it's like, fuck, it's like it's just like, ugh. It keeps putting that sour taste in my mouth as a person who doesn't particularly respect cops to begin with. And it's just like,
it's a fucking gut punch, isn't it? Like it's a real, it's a real,
because it's something that could really happen if we had this kind of lawlessness. The first people would take arms would be cops who were allegedly striking. They would be the ones roaming the streets trying to control things. And it's like, it's not like The Simpsons, where fucking you have a bunch of drunks running around, accosting people for money because we are now the law, while the drunk cops are fucking sitting at home. No, it's not. It's not that fun and roses and shit like that. No, it's the most malicious assholes running around, and they're the ones who had badges at one point.
Again, another sort of difference between the U.S. and Canada. Canadian cops aren't necessarily going around gunning people down every fucking day. He doesn't show up in the papers as much and things like that. So here it's a real gut punch to see, like, oh yeah, these fascists who are fucking cops. They're finally getting to, during the strike, succumb to their biggest desires to
push their weight around and actually show their true selves. Yeah. And it's, and like, you can see when you look at, like, when the reveal happens, it kind of clicked in the head as like how they have such high powered weaponry and stuff like that, because that stuff would be in their arsenals for kind of certain, tactics and whatnot.
Yep.
So it's like, especially here in the States, like we have fucking tanks for no fucking reason in the smallest of towns because this governments gave them money to buy these SWAT materials and stuff like that. So you have these like small little fucking rural towns with a tank in the back of the police department. Makes no sense. So yeah, it's like, okay, you can understand that would happen if law went to shit anywhere.
Yeah, it makes me think like, so, it's not totally spelled out who Cabe is, but it makes me think Cabe is
lieutenant or something like that.
Yeah, like a high up in the police force who can by underhanded means get access to all these weapons.
And he has respect for the men have respect for him because of his rank. Yeah.
So like, some of these guys are just, your weekend warrior types who drink with the cops in the bar or whatever. But like Cabe, I definitely think is probably a fucking cop. Yeah. And he probably, pulled a few strings, got a bunch of these stuff that was, illegal weapons confiscated in lockups. Right. And then just took them. And I mean, who was going to, he's one of those guys who was powerful enough that no one was going to look the other, look and see what he's doing. They're going to look the other way. And so,
it's like all the stuff that happened in Portland last year when the cops abandoned their friggin' their thing, and they had pretty much night by night friggin' protesting going on, and they would just shoot shit into the air to kind of caught everybody, but no one. But it's like that kind of stuff where it's like you can definitely tell the cops were so overly like they were prepared for it, like we're prepared for war pretty much because they would push out with tanks and spray people with shit, but it didn't stop the people from coming, which they kept coming every night, and thank God. They kind of explain a point, and it worked very well. But that's the kind of stuff that you see, and you watch the film, and you go, "Yeah, it could." Yeah, a little bit of lawlessness, and shit really goes down the hill. Even if it's peaceful protest, the cops go fucking bonkers, right? Around in the states, which they did that in California, they did it in Portland, they did it in New York when they were doing all the George Floyd protesting. If anybody stepped out of line just a little bit, the cops are there to fucking pretty much light you on fire. And
I mean, you see them sitting there like, patting fucking Proud Boys and other sort of fascists on the fucking back and taking
like that fucking kid who killed a couple of people.
Yeah, fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, I don't even talk about his name.
No.
But we all know who he is. And then you have assholes like Ricky Schroeder fucking bailing him out of jail and stuff like that. Piece of shit. But yeah, it last year was pretty much you watch a film like this and it's like, oh, this is just something that like, it's a really great concept, but it's like we practically lived half of it last year with that bullshit, because one man died, because of a cop's arrogance, and the world just didn't want to take it anymore, which is fantastic. But I think one life has to be lost for the world to stand up against this shit. Yeah, and that just sucks.
In 1983, especially in Canada, this is kind of like speculative fiction more than anything else. But now it's just real, and it's that's how fucking sad things have gotten.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. But I really like this. Like, fucking
definitely.
It does have like standout moments of violence and gore, so like it fits the exploitation tropes, but it doesn't rely on shocks and sex to sell it like a typical grindhouse film.
Yeah, Barbara, Barbara wears like a sheer bra at one point. We kind of see her tits in it, but it's not like we're like, whoa, because that's when she's like getting changed. That's the one time when Cabe actually sneaks in and tries to stab her to death with a fucking, grabs her hair. And it's great that Horatio's just gets in the room just in time to stop him. It's like,
that reminds me. I love that part where Horatio tries to kill the dude through the mirror at one point, but he's out of bullets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it clicks, and he's like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
And that's how they find out that's how they were able to kill everybody. Like they were able to kill the one guy at least with the bolt through the neck. Yeah. Because how the fuck did he do this? Like, and then as he's saying, he pulls out the gun. He pulls out the rifle, and he clips, and he's like, "Shit!" And he just starts spraying through the thing. Yeah, which gets a couple of people shot in the hand. Like Chester again, shot in the hand. I think during that scene. Yeah. And then like Chester goes out, and he has. I don't know if is it just a trigger? Like he has something that sets up that kind of sets an alarm off to them to tell them that something's happened outside of him because
he by the time
garrots him.
By the time Chester comes downstairs, Cabe has already entered the building.
No, I'm saying there's a reference in that scene when Chester gets killed by Cabe. He gets pretty much strangled to death.
Yeah, and
there's a thing that's kind of hanging in his hand, in his shirt. That's because his shirt has been pulled up. There's kind of like this little button that looks like it. I'm like because they kept showing it. Like I don't know if it was either he had a built-in like explosive on him, or he had some kind of like trigger that set off an alarm for them to tell like that something was bad was happening. Because he kept trying to grab it, but it was because I guess with his shirt and everything pulled it up a little bit, so it was like too far for his hand to grab. When you look back at this, because I don't remember them referencing it, but when he's getting killed. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's another thing where another person they kept showing because it's definitely because his dead body looked really, really good. So it's like, all right, we're going to go back to him every once in a while. And especially when people run past him, we're going to sit on him for a second.
Yeah, that's where, that's where it gets to be like a slasher movie. It's like, it's the Michael Myers moment where you see the other bodies, kind of like shit. Yeah. The
arrow through the neck, I understood because it was just like, that was a really good effect. It looked really good, especially in this like remaster that they did for it. It doesn't look cheap, but it looks, he's got the blood fucking coming out like through his face and his eyes. Yeah. He's got the fucking through the neck. It's worthwhile kind of constantly reference every time somebody goes into that bathroom, they look down and it sits there for about a second to look at it. And you can definitely tell the director's going, look at this fucking thing. We spent the money on this and it looks great.
He's dead and his eyes are still open.
Yeah. It's like, look at this. Like, ugh. Like you can definitely tell like he knew what he wanted to show off with effects wise.
Yeah.
And I think you have this competent cast of actors that really work well. Like you have like the guy who plays Cabe, he's 6 words in the whole fucking thing. He just demands this kind of menace. You have the woman who plays Barbara, she is kind of on the teeter of like completely losing her shit, but she's able to kind of hold it in just enough.
They show her being high strung at the begining, like where she's like jonesing for cigarettes and stuff.
Yeah, like, and when she does get cigarettes, she's smoking them like fucking 3 at a time. Like she, but like I like the whole fact. Like I didn't realize that the other guy was blind until later because he's wearing glasses. I have one of my uncles is legally blind by the state of New York, so like when I was a kid, I never realized it. Like, and then when we got older, like it was like, oh, okay. Like he wasn't allowed to ride a motorcycle, but he did it anyway for fucking 30 fucking years. Like now, like he's in his 60s, and if he takes those glasses off,
just
fuck all. Yeah, you don't want him near stairs when he does that shit. Like all right, because he will fucking take a header.
Right.
Like, yeah. But yeah, like I really like the cast. I really like the way it was. I like the fact that it's like a whole one night thing. I'm always a big fan of those kind of films. And like I said, like I went and bought the Blu-ray, and like I just ordered it because I was like, "Fuck, I need this. I need this. Like, I have the digital; it's fine, great, but I need a physical copy of it." And I was like, "It's like fuck it, yeah."
I will mention just pot for me personally, just being an East Coast boy, like seeing there was a case of Alexander Keith's beer at one point in the closet. There was Hermit's wine, which is the predominant bum wine on the East Coast that they had in the fridge that they were, like, here, have a drink of this. It'll set you right. It's like, no, you probably shouldn't be doing that. You got fascists outside trying to kill you, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And I will also mention, like, I did look this up on Letterboxd to, like, see what people thought of it. It was like, and I always start with the negative reviews first just to see how funny they get. And almost all the negative reviews are like, this movie's too dark because they only saw the VHS copy.
Yeah, they need to come back and see it again. Yeah, that's the sad part when you have films like this where it's underseen. That's what it is. It's kind of forgotten, and it's great that a company like Severin kind of just threw it out there.
Yeah,
like in the middle of like nothing. It's like, hey, by the way, we have this film, we're releasing it, and it's like within like a bunch of other shit that they do every month, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I've never heard of it, so it's like, great. And then when they put their trailer stuff out, I'm like, oh, this, they picked the best fucking points and stuff like that. Like, oh, definitely have to pick it up. And it was definitely on a wish list of films because Severin has become one of my favorite boutique labels in the last couple of years. And like every time they do a sale, I at least pick up 1 or 2 things. And so it's like, oh, slowly I'll get to it. And then when you were like, you said you picked it up and did like an unboxing on YouTube, I was like, yeah, I want to be on that show. That looks fucking dope as hell, that movie. And then now here we are.
You also want to be in the Nosferatu in Venice show as well.
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah,
because I want to hear your opinions on that film, and I want to.
Oh boy, yeah,
yeah, that fucking movie's too much, man.
Yeah,
that's fucking nuts.
I've got no real trivia for this because we kind of actually went through it mostly in our discussion.
Okay.
No budget information or box office.
Right.
From what I understand, it did kind of okay.
Well, he was able to continue making movies, so I'm guessing did pretty well.
So you can find a couple versions of this on YouTube. I would not recommend it though because they are the real dark, shitty VHS rips where you literally you can't see anything for like a good part of the film if you watch those versions.
Fuck no.
Like you said, Amazon Prime. You could download the Severin Blu-ray print from Rare Lust, or you can just go and buy the DVD Blu-ray. Whichever is your preference, and I would just recommend doing that.
Yeah, I mean, go and steal it. To be honest, but you're gonna want to buy it after you see it because it's definitely between rent and buy was like $1, and I was like, fuck it, just buy it. I'm gonna watch it again. Like anything, like I said, anything Severin puts their name on, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy it, even if I haven't seen it. And that's most of the shit that maybe 60% of the shit they put out. I'm like, I haven't seen it, especially the Franco stuff. I'm like, I haven't seen it, and I still buy it because I'm like, I need to have it.
I like their choice for stuff they pick, and then it's like this. I think was something that like the guy who runs that company had on VHS for a long time, and he's always been trying to get it as a release. Like that's kind of the one thing I love too is that they do stuff that they know are going to make money, but then they pick stuff like Siege where it's a 50-50, but it's something that, what's his fucking name? I can't remember now. Grew up watching on VHS in the UK and was like, we need, if it ever comes up in a lot, if it ever comes up an ability where I can purchase the rights to release it, I need to do that. And that's just, I love that with a company where they're just like, I don't know if it's going to make us any money, but I think it's a really great film. They found like a few years back or something like that, they found negatives of this somewhere. And I don't know where exactly they found them, but they did. And so it was available. And so they picked it up, right? And then you've got the director of Hobo with a Shotgun was kind of championing it.
Yeah, Jason Eisner, he's anything like that or Things he's a huge fan of. When Severin put that on DVD, he fucking went nuts about that, and he's on all the special features. I think he even does the commentary for on the disc, right?
With the director, yeah. It's a good commentary. I enjoyed it. So
awesome.
So I think pretty strong recommendation from both of us for this one.
Definitely
worth picking up. And Vaughn, thank you very much for being on. It was a pleasure to have you back, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good to be back. I'm kind of making this kind of reign around. I have to get off my own ass and make my own shit done. But I'm very happy to kind of just come in and just kind of talk, especially like a film like this. And it's just a really good time. So thank you so much.
Oh no, my pleasure. Please plug all your stuff.
All right. So you heard the promo before. The thing's 100 years old, but so I do the same kind of show that Lee does, but I don't have anybody on there normally. I have been kind of doing guests, and I should try to get you on before the end of the year because this is my 13th year podcasting. So I've been kind of making an effect to kind of get people in and do different things and get more voices out there. So Motion Picture Massacre is a cult exploitation horror kind of grindhouse, genre podcast. I kind of just whimsically just pick shit off the wall and I talk about it. I'm kind of that guy that you met in high school that's seen every fucking thing and wants to make sure that you get this. This is what you need to watch.
Yeah.
And I do the shows whenever I feel like it. I'm not a guy who's kind of, I did that whole weekly thing. I kind of gave up. Now it's just kind of random. If you like that, if you like talking on this show, it's motionpicturemassacre.wordpress.com. If you're on any kind of social, especially Letterboxd, Instagram, and Twitter, it's all MP Massacre. You can follow me all through there.
Yeah, and I'll link all that shit in the show notes. Check Vaughn's stuff out. And yeah, you've had a lot of guests on lately.
Yeah, I've done a couple of things. I did Hillbilly Horror, the last episode with Brody Black, which was just kind of a give all. And then I've done a couple of episodes because he recently passed. Was it Robert Downey Sr.?
Yeah.
So I did a long form episode. I can actually do another one because I still haven't. I've only gone through the 60s and 70s. I can do the 80s, which I'm kind of like I want to find a good copy of the Academy and do it, but I have not been very good at finding a good copy of that film. But yeah, I did 2 episodes of Grisher's Palace, a bunch of his short form stuff. I'm thinking of doing Norman Mailer's show now that I got a copy of Tough Guys Don't Dance.
Oh yeah.
So now I have all his films. So I'm like, yeah. So it's just it's a show that I kind of it's the stuff that I really enjoy and really like. Like I'm dating somebody now, and so she's getting to know the kind of weird shit that I'm into, and she's kind of one kind of intrigued and 2 kind of horrified, which I can understand. Any woman who's not a big, huge movie fan can get a little overwhelmed about all this silly bullshit.
I mean, so, I'm kind of in a similar situation that you are with my girlfriend.
Right.
But this will be burnt into your lady's mind at some point.
Yeah.
Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God!
I knew I had that on hand for.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what we're doing next. It's probably going to be like another week or so before we get another episode out because I am working next weekend. So, but thank you, Vaughn. And people, if you want to find us, go to tmbdos.podbean.com. Find all my Facebook, Apple Podcasts, all the bullshit links. Go to YouTube and make obtuse comments that I hate and shit like that. But it was an absolute pleasure, Vaughn.
Yeah,
thanks
this was
for being
fun.
here.
Yeah,
and thank you all for listening. And we'll be back when we're back. Goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Cape. That's the wrong fucking one again. That's the wrong outro. I gotta fucking fix my soundboard. All right. Thank you for listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For further episodes, our Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube links, please go to tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you. Drive through.